The Toyota Land Cruiser VDJ 76, 78 and 79 have a bit of an Achilles heel when it comes to their alternators. You see, the alternator is mounted right down low on the engine and it's exposed to all of the off-road mud and grime that the vehicle might come in contact with. Now, an alternator's not really going to cope with that, and that is where the Terrain Tamer industrial sealed alternator solution comes into its own. Now, there's three areas in an alternator that can be damaged by that environment. Firstly, there's the brushes, and these are made of a soft carbon material, and they can wear away very quickly when they're exposed to the grit and grime. The second area is our bearings. Now, obviously bearings need grease, not mud. So the moment they get mud, they start to fail. And the third area is a characteristic we call poling. And that is where either the bearings fail and the rotating assembly called the rotor of the alternator starts to impact with the stationary section called the stator. And when that poling occurs, the alternator is not long for this world. Alternatively, just the build-up of mud and grime inside the alternator can actually start to seize the alternator together so it won't rotate. Regardless, all of this happening is negative for the alternator and it's not going to survive. On the front of the Toyota Land Cruiser alternators, there's a fan, and there's also a fan at the back of the alternator. And the way they work is they draw air in and then out through the center of the alternator, and that keeps the alternator cool. Now, if those fans are pumping mud, that mud builds up inside and the cooling fins stop, and therefore the alternator will overheat. So again, lots and lots of issues can come from having the alternator so exposed to all of the mud that the vehicle is operating in. So that's where the Terrain Tamer industrial sealed alternator comes into its own. This alternator has been designed to work in that environment and is working very, very well on many customers' vehicles around the mines and those harsh environments that they're called to operate in. So the way it works is this alternator draws clean, fresh air in through this air filter. It'll run down through the pipework and it will run into the alternator through these two pipes. One for the back of the alternator fan and one for the front of the alternator fan. Fresh air will then travel through the alternator and out this center tube, and it travels up to this fitting, which is now fitted to the exterior of the factory airbox before the air filter. So now the engine can consume the air that has traveled through the alternator. You might be wondering, does the alternator get enough air to keep cool and operate? Well, the answer is yes, it does. You see, in their testing, they've found that there's around about 10 degrees decrease in temperature with this system. But more importantly, they developed this sealed alternator system with a mine down in Tasmania that operate their vehicles in a ridiculously harsh environment. And many of the prototype alternators running on those vehicles now, some years later, are still operating. That in itself is testimony that this is going to save you downtime and it's going to save you having to change out alternators on a regular basis. So if you're operating your vehicles in those extremely harsh environments, consider the Terrain Tamer industrial sealed alternator. I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails. Terrain Tamer have a 50-year-old promise to deliver quality engineered four-wheel drive parts.